that the previous questions answered in this House stated clearly that all members had to be registered farmers.
Minister Samudo.
Mr. Speaker, I don't quite understand the question. Are you asking me if there's been a change of policy to make 25% non-farmers? No. That has always been the case. Hello. Let me make it clear to you now. The PNP government used PMOs, you know.
Okay.
You used PMOs while you were in office. You want me to show you the facts? You want me to show you the facts? I don't know, you're going on as if it's a discovery that the JLP invent PMO. And it's the first time it's being used as a vehicle to help humble people in the rural areas as farmers to come together for the purpose of expanding the agricultural output. What are you talking about?
Calm down.
Go study your facts.
Calm down. Mr. Speaker, I don't mind sending this document to the member. Yes, that the document that outlines whether or not persons should be registered farmers was revised in October 2016, and the criteria outlined for both old and new are as follows. This document will be tabled at the PAAC tomorrow, and he can revise this copy to inform himself.
Of course.
No. Since you want to go down that road, since you want to go there, let us go there. The second question, because we have established that the rules were not so. We have established that. The second question. This group in Porus, Claudia Morant. Are you familiar with that name?
Am I familiar with her name? Of course, I am not.
Can they counselor?
Why would I be familiar with her name necessarily unless I knew her personally?
At the time, she was not a counselor. She's now a counselor. Minister.
Let me say something.
Hey,
man, let me answer the question. I can't. Let me say something. Mr. Speaker, you know what is crucifying us in this country? Cock your ears and listen and stop chatting. You know what is crucifying us in this country? The fact that we as political representatives spend valuable time condemning ourselves.
Yes.
Condemning ourselves, in other words, you can't give service to the people as a political representative and at the same time serve the nation through an organized marketing organization for agriculture.
That is correct.
But you are willing to accept the politician in almost every other sphere. But the sphere that says you are there to assist and participate in the development of humble rural farmers for the development of agriculture and growth of our country. Your thinking is cockeyed. I don't know of any, but I'm saying there's nothing fundamentally wrong with it.
Yes.
I know Councillor Delroy Williams.
Yes.
And he's the mayor of Kingston and St. Andrew. No, if he had been given a job before that, as he had been a senator, he is good enough to take up the responsibility of a senator and mayor. But he couldn't be a PMO chairman. He couldn't be a PMO chairman.
Right, Ronnie? Right?
You see how shameful the suggestion is?
Mr. Speaker, the member's response to the question is that it is shameful and cockeyed. I'm almost sure that the member answering the question is not the one who has direct charge of RADA. Because the member was direct charge of RADA. The basis on which he decided not to give production incentive but to give PMO was that he wanted to remove the allocation from elected representatives. He said he wanted to take the allocation out of the hands of politicians. That was the basis of creating the PMO.
Mr. Campbell, Mr. Campbell, is that your final question?
Get in there.
Well, Mr. Campbell, will you ask the questions you want to ask? I'm going to ask the minister to hold, let you ask all the questions because we have run out of time for questioning. And so I'm going to ask you to put all the questions now. I'm going to ask you to put all the questions that you want to ask to the minister, and I'm going to ask him to get up once and answer them. That's your final question.
Mr. Speaker, I'll obey, because I have other places that I will speak.
No problem with that, Mr. Sweet.
Who is the officer that PMO send their request to for funds? Who determines which PMO get funds and what amount? What are the criteria used to determine the amount of money each PMO gets? Have there been disbursements? Have there been?
Members, may I advise you that you are being broadcast to the world. Right now, you are on television. And I am asking you publicly to demonstrate some respect for those who are watching us. Mr. Campbell, will you proceed to?
Is the member aware that disbursements would have been made to groups who have not had any meetings? Never had a meeting. Disbursement made to groups that never had a meeting. Is he also aware that allocations, the person in charge of RADA gave instructions that the allocation could be used for non-farming purposes? Is he also aware that members who are listed on documents as having gotten allocation when checks were made have no knowledge of same? Mr. Speaker, I have not asked one question that I don't know the answer for. Not one. The answer to question 8. The answer to question 8, which is said that these allocations would have been given to provide vulnerable, affected farmers with appropriate support. That's what the answer to question 8 says. And if you turn to the answer to question 6, you find several parishes where no money has been spent. Is it that you don't have vulnerable farmers in those parishes where no allocation has been spent? The member from Northeast says 29% growth. The answer to question 6 says only $10 million has been spent. Are we suggesting that $10 million has led to 28% growth in the agriculture?
Minister Samudo.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, the non-expenditure was as a result of the process that attended the whole distribution of assistance for farmers throughout the country. The process needs to be reviewed, and the process will be reviewed. And therefore, it was no point proceeding without a proper foundation on which to build. And so we will build the whole system around assistance to small farmers. And that is what we are in the process of doing right now. And that review includes the manner in which RADA is managed. That is what has caused us to halt. Now, we are not saying that $10 million created a 29% growth. That would be preposterous. But what we are saying is that we have embarked on a strategy. We have embarked on a strategy to reach out into the communities around the length and breadth of the agricultural parishes of this country to involve directly small farmers. Now, I am not going to be a hypocrite and a naive person to say that when you have an effective program and it's a large program, that you will not be affected by non-performance or persons who may not adhere strictly to the rules of the game. And that is why we want to make sure that when the rules are reviewed and the mechanisms for monitoring has reached a level of efficiency, that we can be assured that maximum output attends our exercise. That is the basis on which we are going forward. It is being reviewed right now. And now when he speaks about, imagine people are going to get allocations, and those allocations have been removed from members of parliament. That is the crux of the matter that is irking the opposition. You think it's petty? Well, if you ask some people over on your side, leader-elect, you will find that at the heart of this issue is the fact that people who are members of parliament who traditionally got allocations from the minister, some by virtue of a phone call indicating the quantity, and it applies to all of you except the newcomers. Every god one of you got a phone call. Or a note. Quite frankly, the minister and I were good friends, so I never need to send me a note, him just give me a call. He said to me, I am giving you $250,000 to spend in your constituency to help small farmers. We have a lot of chicken farmers. Now I'm going to put your mind at ease. The restructuring and the review of this exercise will include members of Parliament. I've made my position very clear. Will include, there is a role for the Member of Parliament, because it is easy to say that, well, you are going to go directly to the people, and that is good and effective, and that's what these PMOs are designed to do. But there is a role for the Member of Parliament to serve the needs of the people who view the Member of Parliament as their main source of advice and support in the rural areas. So you can't remove the Member of Parliament from the equation, and we don't intend to. So we are going to, we have limited funds left. We have limited funds left, and we are targeting these funds. There are approximately 4 windows. One, we have to provide for disaster, as we have done and helped a number of farmers, as we did in St. Thomas and we did in St. Elizabeth. Then we have to deal with the need of the targeted produce that we are going to expand. We are this year focusing on Irish potato and onions. So in the parishes that need financial support for the growth and development so that we can stop importing onions and potatoes, we are going to support those particular areas. And then there is the need for infrastructural development and the need to support the micro and small business sector. So within the... So wait a minute. The MP will be given an allocation, but ultimately, it is rather who is responsible for ensuring that the proper management is put in place. Right. So that's what I am saying. So put your mind at ease. We are going to involve the members of Parliament in this process, but not, let me say this, but not to the exclusion of other farmer organizations. Every farmer has a right to organize in a community. And we are not going to compromise the right of small farmers to come together to help themselves.
Here. I'm saying you can't discriminate against small farmers.
So basically, I will advise you as to the small amount that we are able to give, and there are certain constituencies that just can't qualify. For instance, the 4 leaders of the opposition in front of me will get nothing. Will get nothing. Because they have not drawn down anything and they don't spend their money on agriculture. So we will deal with them separately. But in terms of agriculture, we have to yield to the demands of people like the member from Eastern St. Thomas, the member from Western St. Thomas, the rural areas of St. Mary and St. Elizabeth and places like that. And there has been no discrimination because the parish of Westmoreland got the largest allocation, second only to St. Elizabeth.
Yes.
What? No. Westmoreland has gotten the largest allocation. Support through the PMO program. Finally. Finally, member from Northwest St. Anne. It is not the minister. You suggested that the minister authorized payments to groups. The minister can only recommend. To rather, he can only, anything to the contrary is fallacious. Fallacious, you know the word? He cannot authorize because he is not so charged under his area of responsibility. He cannot authorize allocations. And so he gives them a direction, a recommendation, and it is rather who carries out the investigation. It is rather who goes and visits. It is rather who goes and interviews. It is rather who authorizes the supplies to be delivered, etc. He can only recommend. If the board of RADA says no, it is no. Not even as minister can I and would I ever intervene. So let us not try to destroy an initiative. You may not like it because it don't suit you, because you've been accustomed to growing in inches and we are now growing in yards, but don't make it upset you, because there is more where that come from. We are going to make it very difficult for you to boast of what you did before when compared to what we are going to end up doing. So let us support the minister without portfolio. And let us work together. Work together. Work with us. Work with me as the minister. Work together. There's never a time when you ever ask me for something and I don't say. And I have a listening here and I always try to help. That's how I am.
How many PMOs do you have in Westmoreland? You.
So,
answer me.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, there's not very much more that I can say other than we will continue to work hard under a program that so far has borne great success in some areas. There are shortcomings in other areas, but we will continue to safeguard against any abuse to the system in the interest of the small farmers of the country.
Here, here.
Minister.
Minister, while you conduct your
Members, I think when the speaker requests your attention, because some member would like to speak. Proceed, sir. Go ahead. Ask your
Minister,
question.
while you conduct your review as you just announced,
But you just go with the same
while you
thing,
conduct your review that you just announced, I'm sure you'd agree with me that on such a highly sensitive and technical nature, you'd want to ensure that this review would be final and complete. But we cannot ignore the fact, and I just want to find out if you're aware, as was asked earlier by my colleague, because it's affecting cases in my constituency, that while you're doing your review, please ensure that allocations that are made to presidents that are not aware, and there are a number of cases in my constituency where presidents of PMOs are listed as receiving funds, and when we checked it out, they are not aware that these funds were allocated. And as indicated in your answer, these allocations would have already been made. I would like to know, Minister, on what basis were these allocations made?
No, I am satisfied. Let me make it very clear to you. I have met with every parish manager of RADA. Let me make that very clear. And there's not a single instance that I'm aware of. Not a single instance. And I can only judge by what they say. I know others may have different views, but I can judge by what they say. That in every instance they have investigated, some they have rejected. Some groups they have rejected because they don't rise to the level of efficiency that would attend that kind of operation. So there is no group of PMOs where RADA has investigated and seen that somebody who is not entitled to an allocation get it and do nothing about it. No, well, as I said, we are reviewing it, and we will try to resolve any of those kinds of issues where we find it. And if there's a communication problem, there's a breakdown of whatever sort, we will try to rectify it. You have my assurance on that.
Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Dr. Phillips.
It is, I'm certain the member would agree, the minister would agree that in the context where funds are allocated and it has been suggested checks drawn to persons who have no knowledge, that this could open the way to fraud. The minister would agree. Yes. And that we are talking about taxpayers' money. That's everybody. Now, the minister indicated that up to 25% of the membership could be non-farmers. And you mentioned that there could be accountants, etc. But my specific question is there a guideline as to who could qualify? Because it could be that you have a member of a farm supply store who is also a member who could influence where farm supplies are purchased. My question is, in this review, ought there not to be some specific restriction or indication, guidelines as to what type of non-member is being considered, non-farmer is being considered? And the second question has been touched on by some members here. It is how would the minister explain that there have been in such a large number of cases allocations made that have not been spent, when in fact presumably the allocations are made on the basis of some kind of request or information or consultation with the PMO. Can the minister explain what would account for that large number of cases where allocations, according to what you read, have been made but nothing spent? It would seem at the very minimum, since there are other areas, since there's genuine need, I think we could all say, that that process is in need of adjustment.
No, I've heard the allegations. I've heard allegations. The type of report that we are getting here. Now, the process is not a slapdash process. And we are going to enforce rules that are even more stringent than exist now, of investigating every PMO group to see exactly how they fit into the model that we are trying to create. And so this investigative process was actually had begun, but it was fraught with a little bit of confusion and slowing up the process. And with everything put together, we said, look, you know what is the best thing for us to do? And we sat and discussed it and agreed, let us pause the expenditure so that we don't perpetuate errors. Let us pause the expenditure, cease spending, put our house in order, including, as I said, the mechanisms by which RADA discharges its responsibility to the farming community. Across the board. Because RADA touches everybody, but of course RADA is not going to spend the time down in Seaview Gardens to create agricultural opportunities when there has been no evidence of that yet. But I know it will evolve. I know it will evolve. It will evolve. I know it will evolve. But it hasn't started yet. So we have to go. If you have dry peas, you have to go look fire. So we're going now to look where to put the money to the best benefit of the country. And it is in that exercise that you have my assurance that everything that can be done to make it more accountable, more transparent, and more inclusive will be done. It will be done. We can't just go on willy-nilly and going on with all these things flying around and not come to grips with solving some of the nagging problems that have existed for too long.
Mr. Twigg. Mr. Twigg.
Mr. Speaker, one of the most needy aspects of agriculture is marketing of produce, and the name of the groups that are being discussed are production and marketing. Would the minister be able to say what activity has taken place in terms of the purchasing and the organized marketing of farmers' produce, bearing in mind that some 40% of that which is grown in Jamaica is lost to post-harvest losses of one sort or another?
I'm glad you asked that question, because one of our strategies is to involve small farmers through the PMOs, through RADA, through JAS, and through Jamaica Agricultural Society. And in many instances they overlap. They're common to all those associations. And what we are doing is we are engaging the private sector who traditionally have not been in agriculture, the distributive trade, the tourism sector. We are emphasizing the need for the tourism sector through the Tourism Linkage Council to focus on domestic agriculture and buying all their produce from Jamaica, so we get a greater retention of what is produced, because remember, agriculture has the greatest value added and retention factor of almost anything we do in Jamaica. And so these groups are coming together in a meaningful way to interact with the private sector. Because it's really not government's job to market produce. It is the job of the farming communities working with the private sector. Where the need is there and the marketing skills are there and the farmers with the skills to grow and produce, they come together, and through this effort, and that is why you will see that the majority of the allocation was made to Westmoreland and to St. Elizabeth. It has nothing to do with whether it is where Roger used to be the Member of Parliament or where JC has grown up and lived and farmed. It has to do with the fact that those are the communities that has the greatest potential for expansion in certain types of agricultural output. So it is not willy-nilly, it is not here scare 'em, but we are making it more focused as well. So you will see a lot more taking place. And why you see, for instance, in Manchester, for Irish potatoes and for onions and things like that. In fact, it's an exciting time to be in Jamaica. Exciting. And I look forward to being part of this explosion of agricultural effort.
We are going to take a question from Dr. McNeil and then Philip, Mr. Paulwell will
Minister.
put your thing, right? Dr. McNeil.
Minister, I understand that you're going to be looking at the systems that deal with the operations. But there's also going to be a need to look at the PMOs if there's going to be credibility in the system. Because I'm telling you, one of the reasons this was brought to your attention in September, and for the record, the expenditure was shut down in August, September, because when the PAAC saw what was before it, we sent the request to the Ministry of Agriculture, and I believe that concerns were raised even within the Ministry of Agriculture at that point. And I'm just saying to you, you made the point about Westmoreland, and we agree. Westmoreland is very important, but 80 groups were formed in Westmoreland, and many people feel, and they were formed in many other parishes. There was a focus there, and the feeling was it was because it was a one parish that did not have representation of another type. And I'm making the point to you that the PMOs were formed at that point and immediately money allocated for them. And we're making the point, we all in this house agree that we want to see our farmers get more access. But the fact of the matter is that it must be done for the farmers. It must be done for the farmers. And what I found and brought to your attention, which is most distressing to me, is that less than 15% of the PMOs that were formed in the beginning of this year in my constituency, that the chairmen were registered farmers, less than 15%. Something is wrong. And if you're going to look at it properly. We were given a commitment that there would be a proper audit on it done. We have not gotten that audit yet. And before we move forward in wanting good governance, let us put the thing in place and ensure that we actually address the needs of the farming community.
Mr. Paulwell. Members.
The questions related to net
your
billing.
Your mic.
Right, two questions related to net billing and electric wheeling to the Minister of Science, Energy and Technology.
Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions for leave to introduce bills. presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained?
Mr. Speaker, I now move to introduce and have read a first time a bill shortly entitled the Public Debt Management Amendment Act 2016.
A bill shortly entitled the Public Debt Management Amendment Act 2016 read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of second reading of the bill.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Local Government and Community Development, I now move to introduce and have read a first time a bill entitled the Building Act 2016. 2017, that should be.
A bill shortly entitled the Building Act 2017 read a first time.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of second reading of the bill.
Public business.
Mr. Speaker, before I advise the House as to what we'll do on the public business this afternoon, it is with deep regret, Mr. Speaker, that I have to inform the House of the passing of the sister of the Leader of Opposition, Mrs. Gerard Robinson, passed on the 5th. Unfortunately, we're on this side of the House, in fact the entire House, Madam Leader of the Opposition, extend to you our condolences for the passing of your sister. I'm not sure how many of us in this House actually met the lady. I do not recall, but nonetheless we share your grief at this moment. Mr. Speaker, the funeral is scheduled for Sunday the 22nd of this month at the Macedonia Seventh-day Adventist Church.
Mr. Speaker, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion, notice of which I gave earlier.
Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Minister Shaw.
Mr. Speaker, I now move, be it resolved, that the first supplementary estimates of expenditure for the financial year ending March 31, 2017, which was laid on the table of the House on the 10th day of February 2017, be referred to the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee of the House of Representatives. January. Thank you. No, is that? I read correctly. January, that is. Thank you. Be referred to the Public Administration and Appropriations Committee of the House of Representatives for consideration and report.
Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I'm just to indicate that the PAC will examine this report tomorrow, and it's expected that the Standing Finance Committee will look at it prior to the sitting of the House next Tuesday, so at about 1 o'clock, I believe. And Mr. Speaker, on another matter, the question of the... I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion. Well, I'm sorry, that's public business. Mr. Speaker, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable the Minister to take the motion, notice of which I gave earlier. Another motion.
Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Minister.
Are we closing it? This is the... you want to take it to them? Cancel.
Mr. Speaker, under public business this afternoon, we will deal with the item number 16. The Minister of Transport and Mining will take through all the stages an act to repeal the Caribbean Maritime Institute Act. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Justice will open an act to facilitate domestic and international trade and commerce by encouraging the use of arbitration as a method of resolving disputes, and to repeal the Arbitration Act 1900. Further, Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries will move to speak to the amendments of the bill coming from the Senate of a bill entitled An Act to Establish a body to be known as the Jamaica Agricultural Commodities Regulatory Authority for development, regulation, promotion, standardization of the agricultural commodities industry and for connected matters to be approved. Further, Mr. Speaker, under private members' motion, I beg to move for the suspension of standing orders to enable us to take private members' motion. And this afternoon, the member from Trelawney South will close the constituency debate. But firstly, Mr. Speaker, we will start with the amendments coming from the Senate. We'll start with the amendments coming from the Senate, for which the Minister of Commerce, Agriculture and Fisheries will deal with. Yes, no.
Minister Semudo, the amendment from the Senate.
Mr. Speaker, I make reference to the motion at number 21 on the order paper standing in my name. The Senate amendments are very extensive, and Mr. Speaker, I would dare say that I would not attempt to go through in detail all of the amendments, some 70 odd of them, but I would now invite anyone to who wishes to make any comments on the amendments. We have not found anything to reverse the decision of the Senate in respect of these amendments. So if any member has a contribution to make, I would appreciate hearing from them. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Mike, your turn.
I don't know, he hasn't asked me. Minister Henry.
Oh. No, hold on, man. Mr. Speaker, did you terminate the debate on the amendment? Yes. Oh, it's approved. All right. Thank you very much. Yes.
Mr. Henry.
No, man, copies were sent. Here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I seek your guidance on this very important bill, the Caribbean Maritime University Act 2016. As I start the debate on this bill, I am not clear if there are other members who are going to participate in this debate. I was prepared to take it through all its stages today, but I do not know whether so I open the debate and leave my closing remarks. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and honourable members of this House, I rise to bring to debate a very important bill. A bill which I deem, and if I may be allowed the comparison, since it's the Maritime Act, it is what I call the wave of the future. A new road to prosperity. A bill which by its historical delineation in our history, I will show. But firstly, Mr. Speaker, let me pause to recognize in the gallery or in the audience Dr. Fitzpinnock and all the persons who represent the CMI here today, and I give them my recognition and my applause. Dr. Pinnock left? Okay. The team of CMI, board, teachers, students, and the families that suffer in terms of sending their children to the school are for me the flag bearers of that wave of the future. Mr. Speaker, the Jamaican education system was adopted from the British model in the 1800s. That was at the time of the first industrial revolution, when the British economy was in conversion from human and animal labor to mechanical labor. It was equally the time of chattel slavery. As such, there was a need to train the labor force in basic education and specialized skills to operate the trains, the steam trains that were now being used in the industry. Hence, the British introduced a new education system for them, focused on basic primary education, a layer of secondary education, and, Mr. Speaker, an elite tertiary education that kept Oxford and Cambridge to a standard. I am happy to recall in history that I had Oxford correct its dictionary in a description of our own history. 70 to 80 years later, at the time of the Second Industrial Revolution, came the introduction of electricity power. And with that came the establishment of the mass production system of large factories and specialization. This led to a more complex higher education system. At higher level skills were required. The introduction of competency-based training to operate specialized competence at higher level functions led, Mr. Speaker, to the introduction of the second and third tier university and college structure. Globalization, Mr. Speaker, came in that third industrial revolution, introducing information technology, automation, all of which resulted in a global competition being introduced into a higher education sector as people around the world who were disenfranchised from the economic growth of the world and the traditional elitist education system of their country resulted in them being given now a chance to move from the traditional elitist education to an online distance and blended learning operations. That, Mr. Speaker, led to the pluralization of the higher education sector. While Britain moved away from the elitist system and a higher education sector and converted to an upgrade by polytechnics and colleges to universities to capture high spend in the tertiary education sector globally. The education sector, Mr. Speaker, soon became a part of the export industry. And many cities in the United Kingdom have converted to university towns. For example, Northumbria, a city which was primarily coal, steel, heavy industry, transformed into a prominent university town, also hosting over 40,000 international students studying there each year. I cite this, Mr. Speaker, because I always envisioned the CMI as being the leader of what I would call, for that area of Harbourview, which I would see as a university town, feeding on the CMI and feeding on the necessity of the kind of education structure that existed there. That's why I envisaged the boardwalk on the way for students to walk to schools along that new Palisade of shoreline protection. So as such, Mr. Speaker, education became the main economic driver for that city that I mentioned. Jamaica now has the position to transform our higher education, which 70% of the total annual spend on masters and doctoral studies goes to overseas institutions. This represents an outflow of foreign exchange from Jamaica. This bill then is an opportunity for Jamaica to rebrand its higher education structure as an export industry. There is also an imperative to make the sector more responsive to the industries which must flow and the new creative elements of the people's thinking to begin to raise the vision to move them from poverty to prosperity. And that must come by offering global certification. The CMU bill represents the opportunity then, through the CMI, to represent itself as a niche market university, to attract greater numbers of foreign students and also access international grant funding, which is the most important element that drives education in the world and in health, and make it available, funding from the EU and other global funding agencies. It even provides the opportunity to present the sector for investment in the Jamaica Stock Exchange. This would provide greater relief for the government for higher education sector